What is the first thing that comes to mind when I say the word sex?
Fuck.
Sex.
Physical intimacy.
Okay.
Kids, having kids.
Love.
And why is that the first thing that comes to your mind?
Well, the first time I ever had sex was with the person that I loved. I've never had sex with anyone but him, so. And every time that we do it, it's just like expressing our love to each other.
How are you taught about sex? Did your parents sit down and discuss it with you? Or did you learn in sexual health class, or just through experiences and hearing other people's experiences?
I guess it would be a little bit from health class, but mostly through experience and experience of others, like friends and things. But my parents never sat down with me and told me anything about that, except for the fact that if you had sex before you were married, you were a bad person.
I think my siblings, older sisters, talked to me more about it than my parents. But then health class would probably be the most common one that I've had.
Yeah. My older sister was the one. My parents never talked to me about it.
Health
Friends.
class in elementary and it was in middle school, and then we had another one in high school. I'm back in the day. You didn't really talk
And they
about
taught
sex.
you about everything, though, or just about, like,
Nah, they really didn't teach you much.
STIs?
Yeah,
and such?
yeah, they didn't teach hardly nothing.
TV. I learned about like the whole concept of sex in a book. I read Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And it kind of talked about puberty and sex and all that. And then my friends' parents actually sat down with them and talked to them. And
Think
they
you
got
do
to
something
me.
different as parents, or how are you going to teach your children about it?
I definitely would say something to
Yeah.
my kids. I think it's important to know sooner because there's so much silly stuff in school now. People
Especially today.
are sexually active at crazy young ages.
Yeah.
So the sooner you can tell them, the better.
And, like, our perspective is different than a lot of people. Like, we waited till we were married, and it was a really positive thing for us. And so that's something I want my kids to know. Like, there's positivity in waiting and respecting people and respecting your future spouse enough. And so I want my kids to know that. And they're not going to learn that from their friends and other things. And so I think it's important to talk to them about the benefits of that.
Well, I plan on telling them exactly what it is and exactly what they should expect, and hopefully teach them how to know when they're ready to have sex, and that, when they are ready, that they're
What do
protected.
you consider ready? Like, do you think there should be a certain age when somebody's ready, or do you think it's all based on just your personality and your attitude towards it?
I think it's probably a combination of both. I think certain thoughts and certain views can only be achieved with age and the number of years you've been here and the knowledge you have. Whereas, everyone definitely matures differently. So some people are ready earlier than others, I think.
I think I'll teach them a little bit different by like actually sitting down with them and talking about it and filling in those details. But I will say my parents never said like you only have to have sex when you're married. Like they never like put that shame on you if you didn't. So I think I'll stick with that with my kids. Like there's no shame in not waiting.
Do you
With
think
any luck, I won't have kids. I know that sounds terrible, but I don't want kids. If I did happen to have kids, I don't know. Like, because just like in general, it's kind of awkward. Like, talking to younger people about it in general is kind of weird. Even talking to older people about it is kind of weird. You know, they always
As a mother, how did you teach your children about sex and about the process of everything and staying protected?
Don't do it. Don't have sex until you're married, so you're protected.
What
That's
tips
about
or
it.
advice would you give someone who hasn't had sex yet?
That your first time is usually always terrible, and you should not judge it off of your first time. You should feel that you can only have sex with one person. I think you should have sex with as many people as you think you should have sex with, and not care what other people think about you. But you don't know what you like until you've tried different things. So.
What tips or advice would you give someone who hasn't had sex yet but is going in that direction?
Save it for someone you love, somebody you really care about, and wait for marriage.
I personally would, just from our experiences, like, I would say wait till you're married or wait till you're in a committed long-term relationship, because it really is just, it's different when you are with somebody that you know and you trust and you feel comfortable with, that it is just a really special thing that I never have to worry about Tyler comparing me to past conquest, or, you know, like, it's just different, and it makes it special, and it's something that really kind of bonds you and makes it special that you share just with each other.
Kind of the same thing. Just letting the people know how committed is this relationship really. Because too many people actually get into a relationship and 3 or 4 or 6 months later it's not even there. So why did you share that piece of you that's special with someone that you end up not being with? I think that's the hardest thing. I don't want people to have to experience that. So them being happier, I think, in the long run, is if they wait, instead of having that temporary satisfaction sooner.
Cool. What tips or advice would you give someone who hasn't had sex yet?
Make sure you're comfortable the first time. Like, make sure that you work up to it. Like, don't just stick it in. You need to warm up. Make sure it's comfortable.
Why do you think, some people have such a negative association with sex? Like, do you think that's just how certain people are raised, not to, talk about it? Or do you think...
Yes, I think it's all on how you were raised. Little things, maybe like experience for some, but I think most people that have a very negative outlook on sex and things like that are people that have grown up with the idea that it was bad. Me growing up, we had this idea that it was only good in a specific setting, and in any other setting it was bad. And I went the complete opposite with that, where now I don't, I know, like, you're not a bad person if you have sex. But I think a lot of people are so scared to stray from what they're taught when they're young that they will just always think that way and can't get out of it.
Sex is a procreation, and if you're playing around with procreating and having, you could possibly have a baby. And so you really need to be married to have a baby, because a child needs a mother and a father.
Generations thought it was awkward because they never talked about it. Their parents never talked about it and whatnot. In the world we live in now, things are more open, which can be better for now, because we can, not embarrassed or ashamed, and you can be more open, hopefully, with your family or whatnot to share what's going on, so you can feel more comfortable about what's happening. It just makes it easier when you can communicate instead of trying to make this weird, awkward, this and this happened. Okay, that's it. It's like, well, what benefit are you really helping me in the future? I don't know. If you're not teaching me, then how am I going to know what it is?
I think it really, a lot of it comes down to just communication. I think in the past, like, especially with women, like, it was, you're going to bed with the one-eyed snake, and it was, like, our great-grandmother was like, it is only for procreation, it's only, because, like, they were too afraid to communicate with their spouse, or they were too afraid to communicate, like, what they were comfortable with. And so if you can't talk about those things, then it's if you can't talk about those things with your partner, it becomes a very negative experience. And if you have that negative experience, why would you want to talk about it? Why would you want to share it with people? Why would you want to talk about the positive things that happen?
Like the religious aspects, like people always just are like, no, you should wait till you're married, you should wait till you're married. So like people who don't feel like ashamed, like, I mean, my parents never forced that on me, but like my boyfriend's parents definitely said like, no, you should wait till you're married, it's stuff like that. So it's just shameful when you don't wait, I think. And it's kind of, I don't know, I guess it's kind of dirty at some points, and like with the culture of like porn and all that, I think it gives sex like a really bad name, which it shouldn't, because it's natural.
Sex is between a husband and a wife. It shouldn't be shared outside your bedroom. You shouldn't talk about it because that's wrong and that's filthy and you're sinning if you're doing that and that kind of garbage. And so they kind of place that on their children. That's the word I was looking for. Their children. And so that's kind of what they do, and that's how it is, I think.
Yeah.
Plus everyone's all like, no sex before marriage, blah, 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 blah. So even talking about sex before marriage is kind of like...
Is that kind of in your... agree with society's views of sex?
I guess...
Like,
maybe.
We notice it's not very well talked about. You don't see sex research. You don't see things in the media about it. Not talking videos and movies, but just in day-to-day living, we don't really talk about it as,
Well, I think sex is something that should be talked about. I don't think it's something that should be hidden or should be kept, should be a secret. Like, everyone does it. Everyone, well, most people enjoy it. It's something that should be talked about.
Piece of you that's special with someone that you end up not being with. I think that's the hardest thing. I don't want people to have to experience that. So them being happier, I think, in the long run, is if they wait instead of having that temporary satisfaction sooner.
Cool. So tell me about an experience that kind of changed the way you viewed sex, or has it always just been, this is for making children and this is something private?
Well, the way we grew up, sex was almost a bad thing because you're taught don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. But really, it shouldn't be taught as a bad thing. It should just be a thing that's good that you need to wait for.
It's a really good thing, but it's a really special thing. And it's just a very powerful thing that, not just for making babies, but it's just a very powerful connection that you have with somebody. And so you don't want it to be casual, It is just really special. And I think, when on our wedding night and we had that really special connection and, because I was told like, oh, it's awful, it's awful, it's awful, you're not going to like it, but then to have that really special when I talked to somebody and I felt like I could communicate with him and tell him, you know, things I liked and things I didn't like, and I was comfortable enough because I knew he wasn't gonna blow me off the next day. He was stuck with me.
I really
Or-
hope it's good, but I know it probably
Do you
won't
think
be.
you'll want to do it with someone you're married? Is that like why you're waiting?
I don't know, because there's points in my life when I'm like, yeah, that's definitely what I want to do. I want to wait till I'm married. And then there's other points when it's like more of I'm waiting more out of fear than I am anything else. But all in all, I think I'm waiting mostly because there's no one around here to do it with. it's not a
Slim
very
It's private. You should be kept private because it's an intimacy between a man and a woman, and that's something that they share. It shouldn't be flaunted out to the world. It shouldn't be thrown in people's faces. You know, that's just a very private and intimate thing.
How do you think the media and like magazines and movies and music influences sex today versus when y'all first got married?
Well, the good old saying, sex sells. Unfortunately, it's out there. And so, media is insane about selling or showing just different aspects of sexuality or nudity or whatever to sell items. And that influences everybody. You see the age of kids having sex is way younger, and the amount of early teen pregnancy in schools is going up, and all these crazy statistics that are getting blown out of the water the last 10 years just because of the media and standards of the media have dropped, and the world just accepts them instead of putting their foot down and saying, hey, this still isn't right. People just accept and let it happen, and it's just going to keep rolling down the hill and getting bigger like a snowball, and one day it's going to crush it. It's just going to get out of control.
It's sad. It's great. And we haven't even been married that long. We've only been married 7 years. So just in the past, 7 years, it really...
Changed a lot.
It was taught. I mean, when I was younger, I didn't even know. I mean, when I was little, I didn't even know what it was. I didn't even know people were like that, And then with my religion, we were taught, that you should be with a man and a woman.
Okay.
kind of, shy away from the subject of sex in general.
That's a wrap.
Woo!